Hello and welcome to NFT Decree. I'm Barry and this is part 3 of my one-part series on reviewing Dark Country alpha cards individually. So we've covered the neutral cards, we've done the Cunning Crusaders, we've done the Resolute Rangers. That leaves us with the last two factions and a look at the decks for that incorporate a lot of the neutral tribes, shall we say. So, let's jump in. Second last faction here, third faction, is the Undead Horde. Destructive Horde, sorry. Features a lot of the undead creatures. And we'll just go through card by card again, the same way as done with the others. So, 0 cost, 1/1 skeleton. Undead, not a lot of things trigger off the undead tag, a little underdeveloped here, but would be strictly better than the ghosts, not the Gettysburg Ghost, the young recruit, for an undead deck. It's fine, but like I say, when you're thinking about your curve, you still want a 1-drop to show up, so this guy can come out. 1 cost, 2/2, so that's above curve for what it does. Also has an ability, let's see what it is. Deal 1 damage to your hero. Oh. Well, that's not quite so good. So there's a recurring theme in the Destructive Horde deck where you're going to get creatures at a reduced cost, mana-wise, but in exchange for hit points from your hero. It is somewhat developed, but it's a little bit inconsistent in terms of what you're getting for your hit points. But this is reasonable. Having a 2/2 creature turn 1, and you could have a second 1/1 creature turn 1, is good for a bit of rush. You're trading that 1 damage that you're taking for a swing of 2 next turn into your opponent, on the assumption that they can't get rid of it on their turn. So a little bit risk reward, and these are sort of your basic monsters, right? So skeleton, zombie. Then you got 1/1, the Surgeon. He's got an ability, Last Word. Friendly creatures gain +1/+0. So you'll see, if I just have a look at Reanimated Priest here, 2 cost, 1/2, and friendly creatures gain +0/+1. So there's a buffing mechanism in the Destructive Horde similar to Cultists, and you could theoretically combine them to make something interesting, but obviously sequencing is a bit of a problem. You know, if this guy comes out turn 1, your opponent will try and kill it before you can get more creatures down. Alternatively, it will kill your other creatures before killing this, so they don't get the buff. So kind of, these are okay, but not really your first picks, I wouldn't say, in the slots. But could be playable. And then we've got a spell, Bat Swarm, 2 cost. Deal 3 damage to a creature and heal your hero for 2. So if you're going to be damaging yourself, you're going to need some healing. Unlike Cunning Crusaders, that's going to come typically in the form of spells. And they can be quite powerful depending on what your opponent plays. But this is fine. You definitely want 3 of these in here. The spot removal, 2 for 3, that's as good as any other sort of card, and the additional healing power just kind of buffs the faction as a whole, and makes some of the cards work a bit better as long as you can get those health back. So 3 of these. Flesh Golem, 3 cost, 2/3. When another creature dies, this creature gains +0/+1. So again, you see all these sort of buffs kind of working together, but it's only really good in theory. It's often very difficult to get a whole board of creatures, particularly a whole board of creatures with Last Word down. So you're not always going to be getting the benefits from this. It's still 3 for a 2/3 is reasonable, and with an ability can do a little something. Then another spell, Intimidation, 3 cost. Sacrifice your creature. All your other creatures have +2/+0 until the end of this turn. So spelling on until, sacrifice one of your creatures. all your other creatures have +2/+0 until the end of this turn. I've said it a dozen times before in the previous videos. Anything where you're able to do more damage than your opponent expects can be powerful. If you are able to drop a skeleton for free and this to kill it, then the things that are on the board are getting a buff. This guy would obviously plus off it. If you were to kill one of these guys because they're already down, you would trigger their last word. Always make sure you're sequencing things correctly though. If you're going to play this to kill one of these guys, make sure they swing first in a way that's not going to get them killed before killing them and giving your other creatures the boost. Now you can get quite reasonable sized boards out of the Destructive Horde, so this can also be held onto a bit later on, and suddenly your board of 1/1s, which can really only be dealt with consistently by AG, can get a big buff, and you can swing in for 18 damage with 6 skeletons, for example. Then Reanimate, another spell, 3 cost. Summon 3 2/2 zombies. So 3, you get 3 2/2 of these zombies. And deal 4 damage to your hero. So this deploy effect doesn't trigger. I think I said in the neutrals last time that what I was looking at was... you're going to have to watch all the videos for this to make sense, but this guy summons 2 wolves and would trigger off himself. But when you summon, deploy effects don't seem to trigger. So... that wouldn't really work. So the 4 damage to your hero isn't also going to give you another 3 damage because the deal 1 damage isn't going to trigger. So this is really just effectively a single card to play 3 of these for a slightly increased health cost. So it's actually quite decent. If we said zombies are okay, then this is also has to be okay. And plus it's only a single card rather than 3 zombie cards. So Undead, Skeleton, Mage, 3 cost, 2/1. Deploy, summon 2 1/1 Ghost Recruits. So those are those 0 cost 1/1s. Again, just building up a board. If you're going to be killing your own creatures, if you want to be buffing a whole bunch of creatures, then the more bodies you can put down as undeads advantageous. The only reason none of this works is because AG's board wipes are so prolific and they're so easy to come by, and you're never going to have a big board. So the whole thing, we've obviously not gotten to AG yet, Ancestral Guard, but when we do, you'll see why these cards I do not value as highly as I would were it harder to get rid of a weenie board. But the more of these you can put out and the more pressure you can put on, the balance there should be, can you spit out more bodies than the other side can deal with? And out of any other faction, yes, this would be worth playing. Then 4 cost Beast, Gravedigger, 1/1, and this one summon 2 copies of this, double one's attack and the other's health. So the double wording's interesting. I don't know if there's any way to buff this in your hand, buff it in your deck, but you eventually get a 2/1 and a 1/2 for 4. Sometimes it's just reasonable to get 2 bodies down, because of all the reasons that I kind of mentioned with the power-ups or the synergies. So this is okay, but it's not great. For other than the fact it's a single card for 2 bodies, this isn't setting the world on fire. Then 4 cost Blood Wraith, 2/1, has last word, summon 2 Skeletones. I don't know if they sing or whatever, but summon 2 skeletons. Just handy, if those board wipes are coming down, then you can get that to go off. Now what I need to find out is how the game sequences board wipes in particular. Does it go left to right? Do they all go to the graveyard at the same time and then last words trigger? Or can this be on, say, the left hand side of the board? It triggers first and summons the 2 skeletons before this guy before these guys' last words trigger. There needs to be, I think, in terms of the movement of not the movement, but the placement of cards on your board should be a more important feature of the game, and something like that would make it quite interesting. that you could have something that summons on last word and still get an advantage from some of these other guys. So, these guys are on the right hand side, this guy's on the left, or alternatively that you get to choose the order that your last words trigger in. Something along those lines would make that a bit stronger. Then still undead, skeleton archer, 4 cost, 2/3. 3 of these in the deck, deal 2 damage to target creature, just gets rid of a lot of the lower value beasts, but not beasts, but lower value creatures on your opponent's side, and being able to spot damage for 2 is pretty strong. Definitely put them in. It's reasonable. It's not as strong as I would say as the 5 cost. Where is he? Is he 5 cost? No, 6 cost. Archer, 3/5, deal 3 and inspire. Not as strong as that, but comparable. And you may even, because that guy's neutral, you can have both of them in a deck. 5 cost Grim Chariot, Ghost, so you can have them in Ghost deck. 4/1 Frenzy, and destroy all friendly creatures and gain +1/+0 for each. So this can be a little bit of a finisher if you've got 7. If you've got 7 skeletons on the board from being board wiped. Let's say you had these guys out board wiped. That gives you 4 on the board. You drop, let's say it's turn. I mean, if you got them out, it's at least turn 5 if you're going to be playing this. It can be, you can do a lot of damage with that, is really my point. Maybe swing up for 11 would be the maximum, and it could be quite a strong finisher if you can just get the board state right. There's also cards we'll come on to that, fill your board, or even, if you drop this, you get 3. A lot of things you could do to do some damage. Let's say that was board wipe. You had 2 skeletons, 2 ghost recruits. You swung with both of them. There's 4 damage. You play this for 3 zombies. Well, actually, then your board would be full. So you'd have to come up with another way of doing it. Maybe you kill one of the things. Anyway, there's tricks to be had with this, so it's worth putting a couple in. But you have to, again, sequence your turn, do what the things on the board are attacking with first, and then drop the chariot for the finish. 5 cost the Tortured, Undead, 2/6, Fortify, so it has to be attacked, and last word, destroy every creature who attacked it. Now that includes, as far as I know, creatures it attacked and have done it damage, and that's persistent, so over multiple turns it will kill anything that's swung in at it. Definitely have a couple of these in your deck. The Fortify ability is quite good, helps you build up your board, and also does some damage back to the other side if they end up removing it with creatures, if you don't kill them anyway. Then another 5 cost spell, Raining Blood, destroy a creature, heal your hero for its cost. 3 of these, spot removal and healing, both quite important in the Destructive Horde and the Undead decks, so you would throw those in as a starting point. Then Bear Rider, 6 cost, 4 attack, 5 defense, Fortify, yeah, that's reasonable, and deploy, deal 2 damage to your heroes. So this is, I don't know how balanced that is, right? So the 2 damage should be getting you something above cost. If we say Fortify is worth 1 mana, which isn't, let's say Fortify is worth one mana, then this should be at least a 5/5. I would say Fortify is probably worth half a mana, so this should be a 5/6 for 6 with Fortify, particularly with it dealing 2 damage to your hero. So 5/6 minimum. I think it needs a little bit more to justify the damage dealing aspect of it. Now the one thing to consider with these guys is this lady here. So to put in a combo, like if you have her out and you're doing damage to yourself, you're also summoning more bodies, because it's whenever your hero takes damage, not when your opponent does damage to your hero. You can spit out more bodies, and this is reasonable at a 3/4. With all these self-harm type abilities, you're going to want to get the most value out of it, and having her down is one of the sort of support cards that's going to help you out there. But sticking with the Horde cards here, Mother of Death, 6 cost, 4/4. Deploy Destroy, so destroy friendly creature, heal your hero for 3 HP. So this is okay-ish. It's another trigger in theory for these guys, or anything else sort of last word, to buff up your board, but be careful. I think if you play her on her own, you have to choose her to die, so it becomes a 6 cost to heal 3. So you just got to make sure, again, anything you're going to destroy your own creatures with, make sure you sequence it right, and make sure it actually kind of works out the way you want. Then Enforcer, 7 cost, 5/6. Summon a skeleton for every creature it kills. This is fine. Typically you're not getting a lot of hits in with it, and there's not really much you can do to say attack a couple of things in a turn. There's no items that let you spread your damage out or anything along those lines. It's all very it's okay. I could use summon 2 skeletons for every creature it kills, but that makes it difficult for anything that's not AG to destroy. But anything that gets you bodies is useful within the Horde decks. Then this is a unique card here, Undead Sombra Lucia, 7 cost for a 3/8, 8 hit points, pretty good. Deploy, destroy all wounded creatures, and when another creature is wounded, destroy it. So it doesn't count for herself. If she gets wounded, it's fine, but it effectively gives every creature lethal strike. So as long as you can get 1 damage down, and that's great for your weenies, your bunch of 1/1s. You can, once she's down, you can trade up very effectively, but you also have to be aware that any big creatures you put down is going to suffer the same fate. But definitely throw one of them in. Then Dead Army spell, 8 cost, fill your table with skeletons. There's 7 slots, so you can get 7 skeletons for 8 cost if there's nothing else on your board. Only thing to be considerate of there is that once you've got 7 skeletons down, if you can't get them killed, you can't play anything else. There's no option to overwrite something on the board at this stage, I don't think. So you just have to be a little careful when you play that if you're trying to combo something off it. Like if you want to play Mother of Death after Dead Army, you need to at least kill one of your skeletons on something. And again, this is quite useful. The more of these you can drop, the more your opponent has to do work to wipe your board out multiple times, and even Ancestral Guard is going to run out at some point. Then the big boy here, Cannoneer, Undead, 10 cost, 4/10, and each time this creature takes damage, deal 2 damage to enemy hero. So every time it's getting hit, you're hitting their side of the board for a couple of points of damage. Brainwash will take care of it without doing any damage, and if you're up against another destructive Horde deck, they can wipe it out in a winner, and they get 10 hit points back, which is huge. There's another thing to think about for this one. Save it for you don't want to be using this in a 1 cost creature. You want to be using it on the biggest creature that they've got in their deck to heal yourself back up there, and that's pretty decent. So there's a few cards in here. The synergies are okay, but again, to my mind, it needs a little bit more focus. If you're going for if this is the buffing faction, and the multi creature playing faction, it could use a little bit more support, because if you're having to destroy things to get the effects, then you definitely want to be replacing them with something better, or replacing them so you can trigger the effects again and again and again, wherever you can. So this is fine. I'd say, you know, something else to consider, you know, that Hive. The Hive, if you've got a lot of low value creatures and you can turn them into 5/5s, you know, that's worthwhile in doing. Again, it relies on keeping your board intact, but decent support there, I will say. So let's look at what I kind of built for Undead here. So 3 skeletons, 0 cost. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be killing them. Just keep them in hand until you want to pop them, usually. Then the Surgeon is the +1, +0, and the Reanimated Priest. Can't even talk. And the Bat Swarm. The Combat Cultist is the Frenzy one from here. Right, so again, just treat those as removal in there. And same with the Fanatic. A lot of 3 drops. Same with the Fanatic with the mute ability. Then the Flesh Golem. Where is the Flesh Golem? Yeah, so you're going to try and get this off. It doesn't often work, but you're going to give it a punt and throw some of them in. Vortex is the low value version. In fact, you know what? I'm going to get rid of Vortex and I'm going to put in the more expensive one, the 6 cost Hanged Lady. Skeleton Archer, that does the sort of 2 points of damage, so you definitely want that. Raining Blood, that kills something and heals you. Tortured, you want those in there. Brainwash takes out the big things that you can't get rid of. Let's go back to what's going on here. The Enforcer, you know what, I might go down 1 on the Enforcer and throw in one of these. Can I get more than one of these? Guess I'll never know. Not a lot of slots. I've got Dark Priests in here. You know, let's take the Dark Priests out and let's try and focus on... So you can only have 1 Grim Chariot as well. That's fine. Leaves me with 3 cards that I can do something with. Do I put in zombies? Or do I put in that cultist lady? And hope for... So put in her for 3. And just hope that I get some of the triggers off. Yeah, it feels quite weak. But actually, the deck works okay. As long as you're not up against huge board wipes, you can typically outpace the opponent a little bit. You've got enough removal in there that you can deal with sort of 1 or 2 creatures at a time. And you can deal with some pretty big creatures quite easily, although it's expensive. So Raining Blood takes out anything pretty much. Same with Brainwash, puts things on your side. There's definitely something better you could do here to do with buffing maybe cultists and these guys, because again, this is friendly creatures and not other cultists, but the core deck would let you, or neutral deck would let you play both of them. Or sorry, well, it'd have to be an Undead Horde deck, but you could put in a lot of cultists for it. So, let me just go over it. Yeah, so going over that deck. Give it a try. It's not too bad. The buffing doesn't quite work. You need something else to make it really come to life. What I would suggest is you build a board, 4 or 5 creatures, you drop this guy, and then you kill him with sort of like intimidation. So that, I mean, I'm not using intimidation, am I? Yeah, I can rebuild this. In fact, should we just rebuild it now? Go on then. New deck. Destructive Horde. Let's try. So definitely want these. I definitely want 3 of them. So there's where I'm starting from. I mean, if I assume that I also want a couple of these, I don't necessarily need these. I'll just put 1 in. Could want you. One of these. Anything that clears the board. Like I just need them. So let's say that's my starting point. Is there anything else I definitely need to include? Let's throw her in for what we're doing. A couple of those. The problem is there's a lot of neutrals that you probably want and fewer these guys. So this here hurts me. Let's throw in 3 of you for as well. 3 of you. Not going to put that in just yet. I'm going to put in 1 of you. I'm going to put in 2 of you. 3 of you. We're already quite far down the line. 1, 1, 1. Put those in for a couple of heals. And these are 4 cards that I might want to... Definitely want those guys. These are 1 card. Ooh. What is worth having? Tricky, tricky, tricky. Let's head back into the neutrals. I mean, these are fine. I probably want something with a little more bite. And that card is... Great question, glad you asked. I probably want them as well. So they spawn more bodies. No, it's fine, one of them. Actually, let's take out... I don't want 3 of those. Let's put in a couple of them. Right, so there's my new deck. Now the curve you got to look at there. So most of my cards are... The curve's not too bad. I mean, you got 5 1 costs. Just the Bat Swarm for 2 costs. So oftentimes you're not going to be getting much out there. The Dire Witch, the Fanatic for 3. Both of them are possible. Neither of them are particularly... I guess the Dire Witch is quite proactive. Fanatic's more reactive. And there's another couple of concepts we've not discussed at all in sort of the core game. But in terms of reacting to what your opponent's doing versus being proactive plays. And there's another area where the game's, I would say, slightly skewed towards being reactive. There's very few proactive things you can do in each slot. Because it's too easy to remove low health creatures. Yeah, okay, so this is fine. This is a new deck. That seems to work in my mind, okay, but I'll get some games in and test that later. Right, let's get into the last faction, which is Ancestral Guard. So I've talked about them. I've talked about everything in context of these guys, and you'll probably see why quite soon. They have the best removal by far. They have a number of board wipes, where other factions just don't. And they have access to some pretty powerful abilities. So let's go through here. So the 0 cost thingy is a spell, Fortification. Give a friendly creature Fortify. You're never going to put this in your deck, but you're actually going to see it more often than you might think, thanks to a couple of other cards. And it is quite handy when you do get it for free. Then Ignition, spot removal for 1, deal 2 damage to a creature. There's so many things that die at 2. You want 2 of these, 3 of these maybe. I'd start with 2, and if you find that you're running out of ways of killing people, put in more, but 2 is probably enough. And this can only damage a creature. Can't deal damage to your hero, or any hero. Then Talisman item, 1 spell damage plus 1. Not really worth playing. I mean, there is something to be said for building up spells. I started with a lot of the Ghosts of Gettysburg, increased spell damage by 1. Kind of gone off it a little bit. You can do enough with the damage that the spells do already. So this is unnecessary, and whatever you put it on, you know, susceptible to dying anyway. Then the Stormhawk Beast 1, 0/2, but it gets +1 each time you cast a spell. Now you're going to be casting a lot of spells, but it's not going to stay around long enough to survive that. You know, you put that down, you don't cast anything, and your opponent can take it out for free. And because it's in the 1-drop slot, you know, maybe you think you can get that down before playing a handful of spells, but it's tight, right? Your curve's tight for AG. You don't have a lot of room for this until later in the game, and you're still maybe only playing 1 or 2 spells in a turn. too easy to kill. Here's a Ghost, Shadow, 1 cost, 1/1. That's the basics there. And last word, put a random spell into hand. So that's a random spell from any faction, and the value of this cannot be overstated, right? I mean, even if you get a spell that's useless, the amount of useful spells far outweigh that. So this is a reasonable use of randomness, where yes, you don't know what you're getting, but 90% of what you're getting is a benefit to you, and then you have to find the situation in which to play it. So this is good. Often your opponent doesn't want to kill it because it replaces a card in your hand with a spell that you can then capitalize on in a number of other ways. Then into the 2-drops, how you say this is debatable perhaps, but Nalusa Falaya, 1/1. And at the end of your turn, if you play the spell, draw a card. So again, this is probably only going to be on the board for 1 turn. It becomes a high value target for your opponent to take out. They would trade out their own Shadow, their own 1/1 for getting rid of this, because otherwise you're drawing a card pretty much every turn with this and the spells that you're playing. But you get it down for a turn, and you get a draw from it by playing another spell on top. So you're never going to put this down until maybe you got some breathing room on turn 4 or turn 3 even. You can put this down, you take out whatever's on their side. Maybe they don't have any direct removal, and you're going to get two procs off the ability, and then that's it's definitely worth it for doing something you're going to do anyway. So that's a sign of a good combo, a good synergy there, when you get rewarded for doing something you were going to do anyway, just by including a certain card in your deck. Then Lightning Strike spell, 2 cost. So AG's a heavy spell faction, heavy in on the spell deck. Give me a second. Making this video just after the other one, so throat's starting to go again, but we'll get to the end. Does 3 damage, and that can do 3 damage to the face. So this is actually part of a finisher that this deck could have if the game goes long. There's a good control deck out of AG, and if you can control the game until late on, just sort of chipping away at your opponent's health, this and Piazza, which we'll come on to, can finish the game. So then you've got the Kalupalik, 2 cost, 2/2, so standard. But when you deploy, add a random AG spell to your hand. So this isn't a random spell, unlike this from any faction. This is only from AG, and AG only have useful spells. So the worst thing you'll get is Fortification, but you may get an Ignition, you may get a Lightning Strike, you might get Fire Spirit, a Tornado, you might get a Bless, or you might get this Van Meter Monster, which is probably the worst of the lot, but still usable. So this is great, in terms of maintaining card advantage. You're playing this, you're getting a card back to hand, and the chances are it's off. Virtual card advantage, which we've discussed before, is still going to be of high quality. So it's just straight up card advantage playing it. There's 2/2 body, it replaces itself, and then it's free to act as a beater. Take out any threats on the other side of the board, as long as they've only got 2 health or less. Then Bless. So where I've tried to emphasise that putting in the offering is mandatory in every deck. AG actually have access to a cheaper one. So the spell there, Bless, only costs 3, draw 2 cards. Now at times, oftentimes in my deck I'll get through pretty much the whole thing, but there's something to be said for putting in both. 3 of these and maybe 1 or 2 of the other one. But again, this is where you start, right? You put 3 of these in, and if you find it's not enough, you put in more. Other factions do not have that option, and they have to wait until turn 4 in order to play their version. So this is better, particularly if you've got this down turn 2, they don't have an answer. Turn 3, you play this, and you get 2 cards, and then you get another card just to draw your hand up, and it's it's pretty powerful. There's a lot to be said for all the best cards being in AG, pretty much, or all the best spells at least. Dark Watchers 4/3/4 spell damage +1. So these guys are probably better than some of the others for sticking around if you're going to do more spell damage, but it's not necessary. Spell decks don't particularly need this at this point, and I've just moved away from the Ghosts of Gettysburg, which did the same thing for cheaper, because then you could drop it for 1 and then you get additional damage, whereas here you got to wait till a later turn to be able to drop this and drop your spell in the same turn. Then Fire Spirit spell 4, deal 4 damage to target creature or 2 to all enemy creatures. This needs to be a neutral card and it needs to cost probably 6. Would be my guess on this one. What I'd probably do is swap Tornado and Fire Spirit's ability. I'd make Fire Spirit deal 4 damage to all enemy creatures. I'd have this as Tornado, either focused on one or swings across the board. But that's just, fluff, flavour. The function to... The lack of board wipes available to every other faction prevents the overall increase of defense to get them out of the way, which overpowers Ancestral Guard's wipe abilities. So the fact this only does 2 to all enemy creatures, that's actually going to wipe out 50% of wide board states, particularly out of Undead or Destructive Horde there, right? It's too strong. If this was a neutral card, everybody had access to it, it cost a little bit more, then it would give you a bit of time to trigger off those effects. Same with like a cultist deck, just give you more time to trigger the ability to build them up to take them out of range of Fire Spirit, with the pluses to hit points. But AG cannot have access to both of these exclusively. They are too powerful and absolutely dominates any other deck or any other faction that you're going to put together, because you can just output so much damage for really low value. So I know Tornado is going to a 7 cost, and at 7 cost it's still going to be too good. Dealing 4 damage to all enemy creatures. It really needs to be 6 cost 3 damage. I'd love to be proven wrong, but the aggro decks, like the beatdown, the rush beatdown decks, aren't going to have enough time, even by turn 7, to get out of the way for 4 damage, typically. And it just skews the whole curve of the game. These need to be looked at, and they need to be balanced in conjunction with every other creature, or every creature in every faction. So it's a very tricky one to balance. I think board wipes are good. I've lost games in every other faction because I didn't have access to Fire Spirit. They had a whole bunch of cheap creatures out and I couldn't do enough damage for the beatdown, and there's just not enough removal in the other factions, and not enough broad removal. Has to go into neutral, cost more, and this has to cost more and potentially do less damage. Do it. Then moving on, because I could rant about these forever. Spectre Moose. A moose bit my sister once. 4 cost Ghost, 4/2, deploy, draw a card. So I actually ran these for a long time. They're pretty good. Just the ability to replace themselves, strong, because you're drawing into more good cards. Requires an answer because it does 4 damage, and whatever your opponent puts into it is typically, it's going to die, but you're going to take something with you usually. Just moved out of it because it is super weak to Fire Spirit, and if you get this out, your opponent can still wipe your board for 4 cost, either through Tornado or Fire Spirit, but mostly this is a bigger problem. If this was 6 cost, then this would have more value. Although, it can be removed by other things. It can be removed by Fireball, it can be removed by Lightning Strike, but the targeted removal versus the broad removal is the problem. Moving on, Flying Head, sort of like a harpy thing there. 5 cost, 4/6, so pretty strong stats for the 5 cost. And if you have no friendly creatures on board, it has +3. So there are ways of, triggering this. Make sure you sequence things. If you're swinging into your opponent, removing all your creatures on your side of the board, then you drop this. Actually, this is a continuous effect. I'm pretty sure as soon as you drop another creature, it loses the +3. So I don't know why some things are continuous effects and some things aren't continuous effects. Again, we're in alpha, right? Things will get ironed out and the rules will be, fixed, and the conditions and everything will work properly. But that is the. This is fine. Like a 7/6 for 5 can be very strong, particularly if you're getting pummeled on your other side. It's difficult to deal with, depending on what your opponent's board is like. But like I say, if you've got a bit of board, your opponent's got a bit of board, you swing in to do as much removal as you can. Drop this, becomes a 7/6, and then it's harder for your opponent to deal with. This folk monster. 5 cost, 1/7, 7 hit points, pretty good. When you cast a spell, deal 1 damage to enemy hero. So this is I've never actually used this, right? It's okay. It becomes a target. You're typically casting 1 spell a turn, 2 spells a turn. So this could be useful, but it does damage to the enemy hero, and really you're trying to control their board more. I suppose it's not too bad. Maybe worth trying if you can get the slots. I've not got space for it in my deck, but you could make something. You're going to run out of spells. You're going to have to take a lot of the neutral spells. Let's just have a quick look at the neutral spells here. So Headshot, I've said, isn't very good. Bloodlust you wouldn't play. Initiate you wouldn't play. Oops. What else is there? Ritual you wouldn't play. Yeah, you don't really have slots for it. It just isn't probably going to work. Blessed Roots you wouldn't play. You're not going to get enough value out of it. Evoke you wouldn't play. The Offering you might play. Any other spells? Brainwash you'll play. And then that's pretty much it. Everything else is, you're never going to play that. Yeah. So it's probably not. You're probably not going to get as much value out of that as you thought. But having a 7 hit point creature down, able to ping away at the other side of the board when you're already heavy on control, could be worth testing. Right, the Beast of Busco, Beast 6/3/3. Very poor stats for a 6, but spells cost 2 less. Now, I see some people playing this. I don't necessarily think it's worth it. Usually you can control the board fine at the curve that the game's providing you, and having a faster curve wouldn't do much. Now, I think I've just figured out the infinite combo that I saw about lightning. I couldn't figure out why it worked, but this plus this plus this, so that would cost you 6, 13. So at 13 mana, you can have an infinite 3-card combo to kill your opponent by recurring lightning strikes for free. So let's just jump onto Piazza here to see what it does. So 7 costs 3/7, but when you cast a spell, put a copy of it into your hand and your deck. So you're going to be drawing into more of them. I didn't realise it was in your deck as well until earlier today, but it explained why my opponent pulled nothing but tornadoes for turn after turn after turn. So yeah, that is an infinite combo. It is going to get fixed. It's due to be updated. I'm not sure how that's getting fixed. Whether this isn't going to spells cost 2 less or what, but I'm not. Should I abuse it? Should I put it in a deck and try and trigger it? Because it's not that difficult. If there was some sort of tutor for this, there's no tutoring in this deck, or very little tutoring. Certainly no targeted tutoring, where you can go fetch whatever you want from your deck. But 3 of these, because this is a 1-off. If this was a 3-off, then yeah, you definitely would have that as a combo. I might make a deck like that just to try it out, but I feel bad for whoever ends up on the receiving end of it. Then Old Chief, 7 for 10/10. Well, that's really good for the stats, but can attack if a spell was played this turn. So this should be can only attack if a spell was played this turn, and it doesn't get Frenzy. So if you play this and a spell, it cannot attack that same turn. So the word only in there clarifies a little. Can only attack if a spell was played this turn, but doesn't override. At the moment, this looks like it overrides the restriction of not being able to attack on the turn that it's played. I did have some of these in my deck. It is quite a threat. 10/10 is obviously very difficult to get rid of, particularly on turn 7. You are playing a spell every turn, pretty much. But it's not really any harder to get rid of than some other cards, and ended up kind of filtering those out. Still worth thinking about, but I wouldn't necessarily. And it's the signature skeleton Native American on horse. Worth trying, but I've moved away from it. Right then, Piazza, 7 cost for a 3/7. Spoke about it there. When you cast a spell, put a copy in your hand, your deck. So this is a finisher, and this is just like a normal finisher, without cheating, without the infinite combo. So Piazza plus Lightning Strike. As long as you're chipping away at your opponent, by the time you get to say 13 mana, and you've got the control for it in the form of these, your spot removal, ignition, even other lightning strikes. You've got your frenzies, your banshees. If you can control the game until turn 13, you're able to play this and do 9 damage from here. Turn 15, you'll do 12 damage, and turn 17, you'll do 15 damage. And it's very possible to drag a game out that long. It can be, as long as you see it, right? So if you got the draw, if you see this, then it can be pretty good. And like I say, for 13, this and this and this, so a 3-card combo on turn 13, which you can definitely. Most games are going to go to turn 13 with the AG deck because of the control. The only restriction is whether or not you're going to pull this, right? So that could be a finisher. But as I say, they're getting rid of that as a combo. But as long as you're chipping away at your opponent, you can keep doing that, and then this becomes a high priority target. You can only have one of them. Definitely put it in. This makes no sense. I mean, it's Van Meter monster. It looks like it should have a body on it. It shouldn't be a spell. It should be a creature, and it does the same thing as Fire Spirit, but for 3 more cost. Again, don't know what they're smoking. To end up with this. If this also had a 3/3 body or a 4/4 body or something, yeah, that makes sense. But it doesn't, so why is it there? Then Sylvia, another one-off, 10 cost, 4/7, and when you deploy it, you get 3 random spells, which reduce the cost to 0. Now, these are 3 random spells from any faction, same as the Shadow, and it is sometimes they're not very good, right? So because it can come from any faction, can be of limited value, but other times you get some game-winning cards and you can play them for 0. So on turn 10, she can come down. You can get 0 cost, 0 cost tornadoes. You can have 0 cost. What's the most expensive spell in the game? I don't even know. Let's go to nothing in here. Purge. You get 0 cost Purge, and like I say, you never play it. Do any other factions have high cost spells? Don't think so. Empower, you can get 0 cost Empower instead of 7. That's probably the best one cost wise, but you definitely get more useful spells, and you can get additional tornadoes, you can get additional blesses. Can be anything, so really strong. So I'm going to show you my deck. So this is what I'm playing with at the moment. This is not what I'm playing with at the moment. Did I not save? I must have not saved my deck. So I was playing Ghost of Gettysburg, but if you recall, I've been bigging up the Owlbears. So I put a couple of them in. And did I change anything else? Yeah, change the Spectre Moose for... So I play on 2 computers, so I don't know what one I changed it on. I thought it was this one. For a couple of Hang Ladies. Right, that should be fine. So I'm not getting the additional card draw, but a lot of additional removal. So here's my deck, and the sad thing is, I'm going to show you I'll make another deck, and it's the sort of main meta deck at the moment. Run very well by run by DeVito, and I see that other people are copying his deck pretty much 1 for 1. I will miles behind. I don't know. I keep losing to DeVito. Got smashed by him the first time. Slowly starting to take a game off him and taking him to pretty much the wire on the other ones. But I'll go through that deck as best I remember. But I'll talk you through my deck and kind of how I got here. So Ignition, you could actually go down to 2 of those if you had something else. Oh, can you name your deck? Well, I never. Look at that. Learn something new every day. So then I could call this Cultists and whatever. Oh, there we go. Boom shakalaka. It's not my catchphrase. So 3 Ignition, spot removal. You could go down to 2 on that. Shadow, 3 of those because you want the replaces itself with Last Word if it's not muted and can do a bit of damage. Lightning Strike, 3 of those because, like I say, those are kind of your combos, but they can also swing. They do a lot of work. This card, the Lucifalaya, you're going to get at least a card draw off it and becomes a high value target for your opponent to get rid of. The Kalapalik, get an AG spell. We've gone through all the AG spells that are great. 3 Bless, just cheaper than the neutrals. So this is what I was saying as well in some of the other ones. Like, a faction should do stuff better than the neutral cards, but typically there should be some access to something comparable within the neutrals for other factions. Don't do exactly the same thing. This does do exactly the same thing, just for 1 cheaper. But something comparable and usually worse than the neutrals, so to give it some sort of faction identity. Then Dark Priest, that does the 2 damage at end of turn. 3 Fire Spirit, that's for controlling the board. 3 Tornadoes for controlling the board. Now we've got 2 Banshees, so what you can do is trade your Shadow into a bigger creature on their side, maybe an Owlbear. You drop the Banshee to kill it, but as long as you've got something on the board, you can trade up with your Banshee. Then Hanged Lady, again sort of frenzy style removal. Brainwash for anything too big. You don't want too many of them again. You're better off with removing everything than you are removing a single thing. Piazza for your combo finisher. Then Ritual Master, which is the 7 cost cultist. Because if you end up in an AG battle, you want to put some pressure on for them having to wipe the board every time. These are good. Summon 2 random cultists at the end of your turn. The Sinful Shepherd, again, sort of board removal. This can win or lose games depending on how you use it. I think I discussed that in the neutral one. Just put in those 2 Owlbears and the Sylvia at the top end for getting those 3 extra card draws. So that's doing me okay. It's not the same as the top deck at the moment. Let's see if I can think about what goes in that top deck. So let's try and build it from memory. So he's probably got 2 of these. He's got 2 of these. None of these. No, I'm not going to put that in just yet. Might be some of them. 2 of these. 2 of these. I'm only guessing there's 2 of these. I'm not quite sure of the dimensions, but I can go back and add more depending on how that works. 2 of these. 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 Now I think I might have 3 of them. think there is 3 of them. I think there's maybe one of them. 3 of them as well. But no, let's just say 2 for the time being, because I might come back to add some more. Definitely got one of them. Probably 2 of these. 2 of these. 2 of them. Doesn't always see them. So we're already like halfway through the deck. And then we've got 2 of these. 3 of these. Actually, I don't know if he... No, he doesn't run lightning strikes, don't think. 3 of these. 3 of these. Right, well, my ratios are well off, so... let's just think. Definitely got one of them, definitely got one of them. 2 of these. Now they do have... I don't know what I'm taking out here, so let's assume that any 3-offs become 2-offs. And that looks like... I don't actually know if they've got spectres. I think they do. So this is sort of the winningest deck, I think, at the moment. Very hard to deal with. No, there's owlbears on. I'll put owlbears in. Little bit of a toolbox, bunch of things. You know, archers for taking out 3-drops. This guy draws you a card, right, and he's stronger than the moose, and he's not that much more expensive. And if it happens to be the archer, then yay. And it's very hard to deal with. So my deck can go toe to toe with it, but it really just depends how... Depends on the wipes, depends on sequencing, depends on what comes out on both sides. It's a bit of cat and mouse. You don't want to play too many cards because your opponent's going to wipe them out. If you can get the Ritual Master down, then you know they have to expend a couple of sort of their targeted removal spells on it. But I think this is roughly what the top decks are playing. They might not have combat cultists. Actually, I don't think they do. So if they didn't have combat cultists, then they would definitely have another them. Because just having the control is very important. I don't think they've got more than 2 ignitions, and I don't think they run any lightning strikes. But certainly, you know, Piazza and Lightning Strike is a potential finisher, depending on how well you've done elsewhere. So I think this is the deck that, or very similar to the deck that, what's his face? What's his name? Davido's playing. I think Cryptic might be playing something similar, and I played another guy today in the tournament who's playing, you know, again, very, very close to whatever Davido's playing. There's not a lot of discussion about decks going on elsewhere, but that is that. So let's quickly run through some of the other decks so you can see kind of what goes into them. Now these are, I've at least played with these, even though I just changed them up a little bit, and they work, right? AG is far and away the strongest. This version is probably the strongest yet. These work well enough, and I'll often change into them if I'm destroying somebody with this and don't want them to be too sad about it. And then I built these based on what I think would work, but I've had very little testing for any of them. So let's go through it. So here we've got our native decks. Let me name that now. So all the things that trigger Inspire, Impart. So Ritual, you know, Youngblood feeds off the Ritual, but the problem is that the totems don't work properly, right? So having this and having this and having everything else that goes into it is fairly pointless. Now the reason I'm playing it out of AG is to get the access to the cheap blesses and the board wipes, because if you don't put them in, you know, it's very, very difficult to balance the game around not having them. You just lose is the short way to think about that one. But let's go through it then. So you know, Ritual, 0 cost. Youngblood, 1 cost. You've got your Initiate. Where's your 2 cost Initiate? Oh, no. Who's this guy? Am I being blind? Oh, it's a spell. That's why it's not a guide. To add 2 more young bloods to your deck. I'm actually not sure how useful that is, but it's got the Inspire tag as well to trigger off. Then didn't put the Brave in because he's not actually that exciting. Bless, which is the card draw. We've got Blessed Roots, so Inspire, and if we have 3 natives on the table, Inspire again. If this worked, might be more exciting. The Skinwalker, destroy a friendly creature for +2/+2. Can just trade up your young bloods. To swing with a young blood, pop them off with that. The Witch, Navajo Witch, give a target creature Guardian. Whether or not this is any good remains to be seen, but thought I'd try it out. Shadow Warrior, when stealth works, then this is probably going to be better as well. Stealth still doesn't protect you from board wipes, but it'd stop targeted attacks, so you'd get at least an attack off. Then the Offering, which is more card draw. I just think you're going to need it. Tornado, which is the 4 damage to the other side of the board. Free Rider, for the 1 damage to the target creature. Again, any spot removal is fine there. The Sacred Spear, I think that's probably going to be pretty useless, but you know what, I'm just going to take it out. I'm just going to put Banshee in. So you got at least a bit of a combo. And in fact, I might take out that Skinwalker and put in another Banshee, just to make the deck sing a little bit better. Then we've got the 5-cost Spectral Warrior. Is that out here? Oops. No. What is a 5-cost Spectral Warrior? 3, 4, 5. Oh, this guy. Again, just because he's native. And again, if Totem worked, then that's probably better than Widow. We discussed that Widow's the same cost and better in theory. Then the Archer and the Pukwudgie. Now, I should probably make some room for the Shepherd, so I'll take out... actually, I'm going to take out Initiate. Yeah, it should be Initiate, not Initiate. Put that in. That's probably going to work better. And... theoretically... I don't even want... I'll take one of you, but what I really want is some owlbears. They're just so hard to deal with. There's no real reason not to take them. And you're probably going to end up with a handful of cards there. So if you want to play natives, this is probably going to work. The curve's not great at the bottom. You want to be saving the rituals, so you don't want to play them too early. Young bloods, you're only 1 drop. There's no huge advantage in doing it. Just get something on the board. Initiates, you're only 2 drop, and that doesn't really get you anything. It starts the totem off and puts a couple of young bloods in your deck. But you've got the draw to get through those with Bless and Offering. So because you're sitting on cards often for the first couple of turns, Owlbears help even that out, because you can play them turn 2 when you've got 6 cards, or turn 3 when you've got 6 cards for cheap. Again, Owlbear doesn't work properly either. If you play it on turn 2 with 6 cards in hand, then you go to -1 mana. But whatever. Then Banshees for some more removal. You can combo those with the Riders. The Spectral Warrior for an additional mute. You don't even really want that, but should be alright. Archer's good. The Pukwudgie's good. Could even want another Pukwudgie in favour of a Shadow Warrior. Simple Shepherds, because you're only access to sort of global wipe. Tornado does some work, but not all of it. And Owlbears there. So this will be a decent deck for natives, but you're going to have to wait until totems work properly. So then we'll go into here, and this is the Cultist deck. So Cultist is probably the second strongest faction, or keyword after the native Ancestral Guard. Again, I'm playing it out of Ancestral Guard because of the cheap Bless. but also got the offering in there because cultists are going to work best when you've got a lot of them on the board. Here you've got the Agonizing Follower. This is good. This is a good one drop in general, but obviously got the cultist tag, which is good. The Liquidator, a couple of them in there. Combat Cultist for the Frenzy, so spot removal. Bless for the draw. The Executioner, because then it's in the right spot for ramp, for going into some of your more expensive guys. And it's, you know, it's okay stats for what it is. The Fanatic, Mute, Frenzy, you can put that in any deck as well. Fury Rider, where is that? Here, your other cultist. So this is buff, right? So you put him down and it lets you do more damage than your opponent might have thought, but he's a bit situational, so only one of them. Renegade for dealing with board wipes. Last word, summon a cultist adept, so keeps your board going. The Dagger, you could take that out, right? But if you can get this to work, then you're in a good position for keeping your hand size up. So I'd try that out, and if it doesn't work, swap it for one of the sort of generically good cards that we've spoken about before. Vial Recruiter adds hateful mobs to your hand, and I've not put hateful mobs in naturally, but you could think about that for your 1-drops instead of the Agonizing Followers. But you know, you're going to end up with a handful of these. They're too easy to get rid of, because even once you got them all down, you can't swing with them for a turn. So this is really just to keep cards in your hand. Again, card advantage. Virtual card advantage isn't great, but it forces your opponent to deal with the threats on the board once you play them. Dark Priest, like I say, one of the better cards in the game. You know, immediately goes to 6 health, keeps you out of danger, and you know, if you can buff it with something else, great. Fire Spirit, so actually I've only got one of those in. You're going a lot more rush, a lot more beatdown. You perhaps don't need quite as much control. Tornado does the same thing but better, for the same price. At the moment, that's what you want to go for. So 3 of them, one Fire Spirit. Got the other draw in there. The Treasurer for 5. Give all other friendly cultists +2/+2. Only got one of them because again, you want a board down before you can get this guy played. Playing him raw isn't particularly good, and it only triggers off deploy anyway. Then the Ritual Master, the 7 cost. This keeps your board up and requires your opponent to deal with it. And the Sinful Shepherd, because it's one of the few global wipes again, if your opponent gets out of hand. Now there's loads of other cards that would fit into here, like they're just, cultists are kind of generically good. You could take out the recruiters, but I might take out the recruiters. Let's just put in the generically good cards again, right? So we take out 3 recruiters, we put in 2 owlbears, and we'll put in I might put in a Brainwash over a Hanged Lady, just to deal with bigger threats. So this should be fine. Again, your curve's not great. You've only got 3 1-drops, but you've got a couple of reasonable 2-drops there. 5 cards total. Then your 3-drops are pretty wide ranging, and there. And then you curve up to the top end. So Owlbear is also around the sort of 2-3 drop. So maybe we could do with taking our curve up slightly. You know, if we took Fury Rider out, but I want that for something. We could take a Renegade out, and let's put in something a bit higher cost that does something for us. Is there anything up here? Anything out here that would be worth taking? I mean, Sylvia's does work on her own. What would be worth having? I mean, that's reasonable-ish. There's no Banshees, is there? Alright, let's put in another bit of removal. If you've got a lot of small bodies, you can deal with that there. So here's there's a lot of different variations on what a good cultist deck might look like, particularly because you can just throw in the cultists and also throw in a bunch of the generically good cards and come up with something that's pretty decent. So can't really go wrong with cultists, as long as you put in sort of the base draw, the base removal, and a couple of the powerful ones in there. So then we have Beast. So this is a Beast deck. Let me name that. Now I know that I can. This is pretty much untested. So don't don't come at me if it's terrible. Again, we're playing it out of AG. Gives us access to the draw. Gives us access to the board wipes. Let's see how it kind of plays out for us here. So your 1-drop, in addition to the removal, is the Bobcat. Just it's 1/1 with an ability. It's not so bad. Plus it's a beast. Your 2-cost Coyote, give a friendly creature stealth. Again, once stealth works properly, slightly better. Gator for 2. I mean, that's a flex slot, right? I mean, you could change that for something a bit better. That's in there really just to smooth out the curve a little. Then Blessed and Wolf, trigger another deploy ability. And do I actually have anything that does that? I mean, Broodmother, yes. What else? I mean, Coyote, yes. So yeah, I mean, you could probably trigger a Wolf, or drop a Wolf to trigger a Coyote, or a couple of the other ones as well. But just a body really. That's probably a flex slot as well. Your Mountain Lion, that's a good card, and you want to build up a hand of cards to take advantage of that. Then draw and removal, and then I put in this. It's not as good as it looks, but I thought I'd give it a punt. I've only put 2 of them in, which is fine. Then your Buffalo's good, decent, stays on the board, forces your opponent to attack it, which is fine. Generically good cards again. Brainwash for your spot removal. The Broodmother is okay. You might want to consider swapping that for something else, but getting the 2 Spiralings, if they can stay on the board and you can choose what to hit with them, pretty good. Then the Wendigo, I mean, that's pretty situational. There's 1 of them. It just means that you can perhaps get a bit better value out of your Fatal Strikes in there. It's not really worth it. These are things that I'm just trying, just to see how good they actually are. 7 cost, we've got the Vulture in, +2/+2 every time another beast dies, but you're going to have to, again, sequence your turn. You drop this, and you send whatever you're sending to their death. So this gets out of sort of the 4-cost range for removal. 3 Owlbears, we've talked about Owlbears over and over. And just as a finisher, just something to test. The Titan Boa, 9 for a 7/7 onslaught. You run over the top of some of their small guys, particularly if they've got Fortify again. There's an option there. I don't think this deck is going to be much to write home about, but I think it will work at least. This one probably has pretty decent curve out of them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9s. And as long as you can be consistent with dropping cards, you'll have a reasonable chance at beating some of the decks. Then we'll go into the last one here. This is a Ghost deck. Again, rename now that I can. Again, like, Ghost support's not brilliant. I'm really putting Ghosts in here for the sake of putting Ghosts in here. Like, they don't do anything. The combinations and the synergies are few and far between. But if you really wanted a theme deck, a tribal deck, then this is what you do. Again, we're playing it out of AG. Bless, Fire Spirit, Tornado. Why wouldn't you? So you've no 1-drops, right? So in terms of is there any 1-drop ghosts? Any 1-drop ghosts in here? Shadow, yeah. Why wouldn't you play Shadow? Absolutely getting that in there. Let me take out one of you, because you don't want them too early. Probably don't want you too early. So there's 2 slots freed up. And let's have a look at that. 1, 0, 1, 2, 2, 3. You definitely want 3 of them. What's Grave Ghost? Ghost costs 1 less. Nah, you want that in just to make it worthwhile having. Banjo Man gives something else +2. That's your surprise value. Ghost Mariachi bumps them up as well. Yeah, you kind of want all these. You know what? I'm going to take out. You. I don't really want to because then you've got no 2 costs, but we'll do this. Okay, so you throw that in. You definitely want 3 shadows. Then you've got your spell buff damage here with these guys. Actually, you don't even... There's very little you're doing with that, right? I mean, you're getting spells from Shadow. You can do more damage with the Tornado. Is there something better for 2? Actually, I'll tell you what, we'll take out one of them, put in 2 of these, and there's nothing else in the 2-drop slot that's worth playing. Let me double check there's no other ghosts here. No, nothing until you get to this. And like I say, I've kind of gone off them as well, so you don't see them in. Oh no, I did put 2 in. For the draw, you just need to keep your hand size up. Mostly there. So that's fine. Again, a lot of these are just testing them out. You know, is this any good? No, probably not. I mean, it just dies to a tornado. Same as anything else, but put it in. You know, Banshee, she's kind of ghost-like. I mean, you can make a an excuse to have that. In fact, you know what? I'm going to take out. Let's give the deck a best chance of winning. Let's theme be darned. Hanged Lady, you maybe don't need 3 of them. Let's put in. She could be a ghost. You don't know that. The Mariachi Ghosts, whatever they are, give friendly ghosts +1/+1. Yeah, maybe, but the chance of you having a big board is pretty slim. But is what it is. If you're playing a theme deck, that's kind of not a huge amount of choice. Anything else worth thinking about there? So Spectres are fine, particularly in the Ghost deck. If you can get that for cheaper as well, if you played a couple of things, that comes out for 5, that's pretty decent. The Forest Ghost, summon 2 wolves. Now, summon doesn't trigger the deploy, so you're not going to keep triggering that to fill your board, but that's no problem. And then the big one, the Overseer, 10 for 10, poses a threat. So there's a kind of deck again for ghosts. It's not like ghosts and beasts. I don't think you got much of a chance with. Cultists, pretty strong on their own. There's a few things you can do with that. Native, once it works properly, then it has to be reassessed once it works properly. And then we've worked in the new Destructive Horde. So DH1, that's probably the better one of the 2. I'll be able to delete that. And this is the meta deck. So at the top meta deck, give or take. So this is one you might want to look at again. Ignition, Shadow, Liquidator, Kalupalik, Bless, Fanatic, Dark Priest, Fire Spirit, Tornado, Banshee, Hand Lady, Archer, Brainwash, Puckwudgie, Piazza, Ritual Master, Sinful Shepherd, Spectre. There's maybe not Spectres in it, but that could be a flex slot. But Spectres, Owlbears, and Sylvia. So again, if you want to, when you're thinking about making a deck, I mean, look at this. You know, you've got 4 cards at the 1 cost, which is typically too few. But with the 2 cost cards being, you got 4 2 costs as well, and the Owlbears, and you need cards in hand in order to play the Owlbears. It's actually not so bad if you cannot play a Shadow turn 1, or don't want to Ignition something turn 1. Playing a Shadow turn 1 and getting it killed is what you really want if you've got an Owlbear, because then you've forced the opponent to react to something and you get a card back to hand. You're not losing anything because actually your next turn was going to be playing the Owlbear anyway. Bless for the draw, Fanatic. There's usually a space to play that as well. The Dark Priest or some sort of removal, that's good in the 4 slot. The 5 slot, Banshee and Hanged Lady, that's, this is more proactive. This depends on the board state. These 3 at 6, all quite good. Again, depends what's what. Archer comes out, triggers a totem. Puckwudgie might pull the archer but gets a draw. Brainwash take out something big. Like this is a pretty good deck, and it works because of the quality of the cards. It works because of the what's the word I'm after? Like how the deck comes together in terms of it doesn't have obvious synergies, but everything kind of works. Everything's got a place. Even though it is using some of the standard good cards, right? It's not all out of faction, but the faction Ancestral Guard really makes it work. So good, done. So that is that. I'll try and get some games up. I had some really good games today at the tournament, and I'll talk you through sort of decision making processes, and you can see how the game works properly. If you think I've misevaluated any of the cards or in any of the previous videos, let me know. If you're running something else, then let me know. Be interesting to see what other people are making for decks. There's not a lot of deck tech out there. Or if you're struggling with the game and you want to copy one of these decks, by all means go for it. As the game grows and as the cards are balanced a bit better, then be interesting to see how it develops. But until next time, this is NFT Decree signing off.